Welcome to Chapter 2, Determining Your Coaching Objectives. During this time, we will discuss some of the key components in developing your coaching objectives and the reason that these coaching objectives are so important. One of the most important decisions you will make as a coach concerns the objectives that you will seek to achieve with your athletes. And if you haven't taken the time to think about these objectives, as we go through the lesson, I'd suggest you jot down some notes or ideas as to how you will develop your own objectives as a coach. Let's start by first talking about the major objectives of coaching. These three key areas are going to be fundamental in looking at how you develop your coaching objectives. The first of those objectives is to win. This is one that people often identify with. They're very competitive, and so they want to win. And so this is an easy objective for people to relate to. The other two may not be as easy. There's helping the participants or the young students have fun, and there's helping participants to develop. What happens here is the simple growth of an athlete. So as the coach, you're helping them physically by learning sports skills, improving their conditioning, running them through practices and drills. You're helping them psychologically by helping them to control their emotions and developing their feelings of self-worth and value. And socially, you're teaching them how to be team players, how to work and learn cooperatively with others who may or may not be on the same level as them. As you complete Coaching Form 2.1, which is assigned in this module, it will ask you to consider what you think defines a good or a great coach, what you want to be described as when being referenced to as a coach, and what you will emphasize or what's important to you in the coaching arena. It's important that when you complete this form, you're as honest as possible. It's easy to answer the questions the way they should be answered, but how true are your answers to you? Make sure you're looking within and not just at what you think others are expecting you to say. Because let's be honest, when tensions rise and things get stressful or a game is tight, will you stick to what you wrote, which is what people think or what you think people think? Or will you be doing things that are true to your heart and true to your motivation for coaching? Nothing can be more important in determining how you coach than the emphasis you place on winning. So when you talk about your coaching objectives, make sure you focus in on the things that are real. The next thing to recognize is your objectives versus society's objectives. We have to keep in mind that people are usually unhappy with the coach. There are not many times when you will find that everyone is satisfied, even after a win. So it's important that when you're assessing your objectives, you take a real look at what you're trying to achieve, not just your intentions and not just what society may or may not complain about, but what you really are trying to do. Society's objectives for sports programs and the compatibility with that of yours may not line up, and that's okay. A lot of times there's this misalignment with your objectives and society's objectives is because there are both recreational and competitive programs. Both of these programs have extreme value with the growth and development of athletes in a sport. There are both short and long-term objectives in both areas, and by clearly defining the objectives as a coach, you can determine how successful you are in either of these programs. It's important that you remember that recreational sports focus on fun, learning, and the participation from everybody. So everybody gets to play. Everyone is celebrated. We'll get high fives. This doesn't mean that you can't give correction. It's just that if you're more competitive in nature, you may have to dial it back a little bit. Competitive programs focus on winning. They focus on performance both by the individual, the team, and the coach. And participation is normally the best of the best, meaning these athletes are selected for the team that they participate on. And although recreational sports are designed to keep everyone involved and active in a sport, there will be participants and or their parents who still want to focus on winning. So, as a coach, it's key that you identify your objectives and communicate those clearly and concisely to your athletes and their parents if they are involved. For example, if you're coaching a recreational sport league in football, you may be focused on skill development and the athletes having a good time. You don't necessarily focus on the points on the scoreboard. Or maybe you've noticed that in some little leagues, they don't keep score. That's because in those recreational programs, again, the focus is not necessarily on winning. And although some people or some participants may have a high priority to win, some people are just there to simply have fun. A new perspective on winning is the key. So let's go back to discussion 1. Why coaching? Why do you want to coach? What's your desire? What pushes you? If you aren't clear, read through this chapter in chapter 1 again and try to think through the reasons that you listed in discussion 1. Do your personal objectives match the area of coaching or leadership you want to pursue? And once you've done that, complete Coaching Form 2.2 and compare it to your responses from Coaching Form 1.1 and 2.1. Sometimes coaches will deny their personal objectives. They'll only give socially acceptable reasons for coaching, like I want to help athletes. I want my kids to have fun. That's why I'm volunteer coaching. But really, it's because you want to be in control of your kids' development. Or maybe you place a very high emphasis on winning and you didn't feel like there was another person that was capable of leading your athletes to win. And if you have those thoughts, there's nothing wrong with that. The thing to remember is that when you get into a high pressure situation or an intense situation, you'll be vulnerable to pursuing your own goals at the expense of the athletes you're coaching. But if you clearly define your personal objectives and try to align them with most of your coaching objectives, it'll be easier to navigate through that very difficult coaching journey. I'm not saying that all your personal objectives are always going to match your coaching objectives. I'm not saying you can't place an emphasis on winning. I'm not saying you can't be highly competitive and still coach a recreational sport. I'm simply saying that you must be aware of your personal vices and triggers so they don't overshadow what you're trying to do as a coach for your athletes. Going back to the example of the volunteer coach, I had an opportunity to volunteer coach for my son's basketball team when he was 8 years old. And I was not a good coach initially. That was because I didn't take time to separate competition from recreation. I went from coaching high school basketball at a 6A high school at a very competitive level, being used to winning, being used to my athletes coming in ready to work, ready to run, ready to do whatever I asked them to do, to a bunch of 8-year-olds who are running around screaming and acting crazy. So even though I developed a plan, it was not the right plan for the program that I was working through. Once I took a step back and I realized what I was actually meant to be doing, which is developing them, improving their skills, and helping them to have fun, I was able to shift my focus and help each of my participants or each of the kids on the team to get better. And at the end of the season, we still did really well, but they actually enjoyed themselves and had fun, and they had nice memories to take them moving forward. Final thoughts on this chapter. When you're coaching, know your objectives and strive to develop yourself, your objectives, so that you can better develop your athletes. Strive to win, but remember, winning isn't everything. And remember, in the development of your athletes, you're looking at those key 3 areas: the social, physical, and psychological development of those athletes. As you go into the second module, make some content connections. Your coaching objectives can be directly connected to the coaches who have influenced you in your life. During the discussion, I'd like you to share one coach that has made a positive impact on you growing up. The coach can be from any level, and I want you to explain why you feel they've impacted you positively and give examples of how they were able to achieve those results. If you've never participated in sport, you can still do that with any type of leader that you've encountered in your life. Any type of extracurricular activity you participated in, you could have been on the speech and debate team, you could have done 4-H. There was still someone of influence working or coaching you through that time in your life. And I'd like for you to take the time to identify who they are and to list the connection there. This brings a close to chapter 2. I look forward to reading your discussions. Have a great day.